Hexa was born 5 years too early. So think of, we were the first company to put 3D models on Atias.com and Walmart.com and H&M.com, right? So these were our first design partners back in 2017. Back then, browsers didn't even properly supported 3D assets to be rendered on the browser. So, in the early days, we were kind of trying to figure out where's this technology of value. But the benefit is that because we survive and now are succeeding, we have all of that experience working with our network, understanding what works and what doesn't, and we're able to create a lot of value for them today.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. 20-Minute Leaders is a proud supporter of Make-A-Wish Israel and Tech to Peace, and is in proud collaboration with Secret Chord Ventures, J Ventures, Riverside FM, Fusion VC, Birthright Excel, J Impact, Leap, Google for Startups, and Hippo, and in media partnership with C-Tech.
Thank you very, very much for joining me, talking about your own entrepreneurial journey and your own history and background today with Hexa, looking at the 3D space, all tech stack from content creation, management analysis, etc. I'm really excited to dive into what all of this means and where this falls into your own career. But I have to understand, how is it that you decided to be an entrepreneur instead of being a butcher? I don't get it. Well, what's happening? Well, I'm a third generation butcher. That's my first
third
profession.
Generation.
Yeah. we for all the way from Morocco. So third generation, grew up at the market. Learned business there through actually serving people. So entrepreneurship is in my heart. My dad is an entrepreneur. And I've been building companies since I was 21, literally. 3 months after I finished my service, I opened up my first company, still in the same areas of expertise as my ancestors. But after a few years, it's kind of, it wasn't there in terms of the challenge that I'm looking for. So I decided to start doubling with high-tech companies. My first one was I was a media buyer in an ad tech company, which is kind of strange because the differences between selling chickens to Europe or buying traffic from someone, you'll be amazed about how similar those jobs are depending on what you're doing. So for me, building Hexa after about a year and a half, learning the space, the online space, was kind of a no-brainer. It was really, really interesting, and I think that the challenge really attracted me.
I love it. Okay, so tell me a little bit about what you're doing today, and I'd love to start from sort of the landscape of 3D and a little bit about the pain point that we're observing here and the landscape of opportunity.
Right. So let's divide it into two, kind of what we're doing. So we're doing something very simple, right? A lot of companies are doing the same thing. They're taking a very, very complicated process and they're making it an easy one, right? So if you want to create 3D content or do you want to manage 3D content, today it's extremely complicated. So we just made that process very simple. We work with companies like Amazon and Walmart and change the way they visualize and communicate the products using synthetic data, right? 3D.
And so I do want to make sure, because we've been hearing about 3D in media for quite some time, but I think probably most listeners or viewers would think 3D and say, okay, great, 3D is what happens when I go watch Avatar in the cinema. It's a little different in the way that you're, the scale and the types of 3D that you're working on. What is 3D in our world when it comes to media?
Right. So when it comes to media, typically the customers that we work with, they want to create digital twins of their assets. Now, their assets can be products, They can be rooms, they can be environments, they can be pretty much anything that they're using today in the physical world. And they understand they're moving into 3D because they understand it's just a more efficient way of doing stuff. I'll give you the simplest of examples, right? If you're a jewelry company and you want to create this amazing 360 of a ring, you don't even have to physically create the ring, right? You can synthesize, you can create everything in 3D and render the video. So instead of moving models and products into expensive studios and are pollutive, right? So all of that transaction, all of that transportation is pollutive. You can simply click a button and solve that problem digitally. And that's just one, small problem. I think one of the most interesting projects we did was with the Lakers and Snapchat. If you go to the Lakers website today, you can virtually try on LeBron's jersey. So before we had these type of technologies, you needed to go to the physical store. Now you don't, and technology is improving very, very rapidly. But if you look if you put Hexa, like what are the two main problem clusters that we're solving? One is content creation. So how do you convert a very partial data set into that high fidelity 3D model? The only machine that can do that today, by the way, is the human brain, right? So that's what we're mimicking. So that's one problem cluster that's massive. And second, once that content is created, how do you extract value out of it? We see so many use cases. We see a lot of companies that are coming to us saying, I have that specific problem. Can you solve it? And then for each of them, we build a customized workflow. So that's kind of the platform that we've built, a place where you can solve all of your content needs that are synthetic.
Wow. Was this the vision and the understanding from the get-go? Was it clear that this was the pain point?
No. It took us a lot of time to get there.
Going to the beginning, to the early days of Hexa, was it clear cut? So it wasn't clear cut. So
we made so many pivots. So the pivots that we've made, like product pivots, business model pivots, technology pivots, we pretty much did it all, right? So it took us 7 years to get to a place where we have that initial market fit to some of the use cases that we're solving, right? That we're serving. And the main reason is that the industry, right? Hexa was born, I always say that. Hexa was born 5 years too early. So think of, we were the first company to put 3D models on Ikea.com and Walmart.com and H&M.com, right? So these were our first design partners back in 2017. Back then, browsers didn't even properly supported 3D assets to be rendered on the browser. So, in the early days, we're kind of trying to figure out where's this technology of value. But the benefit is that because we survive and now are succeeding, we have all of that experience working with our network, understanding what works and what doesn't, and we're able to create a lot of value for them today.
How is this economy shaping? Can you go with me on who are the different players in this sort of economy and marketplace, and where Hexa is positioned, and what really makes this economy go around of 3D content?
Yeah, sure. So you have content creators, right? So if you want to create any type of content, right? If it's visual, like images, you have 3D studios, but you have photographers, right? But you have 3D artists. So there's a lot of ways to create 3D content, to create visual content today. A lot of methods. Some are physical, some are digital. But to scale it, you need the physical objects, whether you want to scan it and now the industry is moving into a place where you don't have to have a physical asset. You're moving into 3D first. And this is shifting the entire way of, people that are selling products look at their visualization flow or their design flow. So 3D helps them from the moment they ideate a product. They think of what is the next collection I want to design, from that second onward, they can use 3D tools to make their work more efficient. So that market is divided into kind of two. One is the brands that are designing and manufacturing those products. Second is the retailers, those marketplaces that are selling those products. So these are the two main entities. And then on top of it, there are the marketers, either publishers, right? So websites that drive traffic to those either brand website or retailers' websites, right? Or platforms like Snap, Google. Now it's evolving, right? So you have a lot of metaverses that are pulling into them. Like one of our best partners is Epic Games. And we work with them to make sure that they have enough inventory in 3D, right? So we're improving their ability to ingest content. So all of that stuff is things that we're doing, and you see a lot of players, either the tofu, right, top funnel, or people are using this technology to increase sales.
Let's talk a little bit about the role of 3D in the world. And where we're at and the way that media is progressing and where we're headed. What is your perspective on 3D as part of our world?
That's a great question. So first of all, 3D helps us better express ourselves, right? So we're not limited to the form that we were born with. Or now, you mentioned avatars, now it's unlimited.
Yeah,
I think that's why it's so compelling to the younger audiences that, when I was a kid, I dreamt to be a lot of things, but I couldn't be, right? I was in this form. But now with all of those metaverses or games engines, you can name it whatever you want, right? So there's buzzwords, but there's all of those endpoints at the end, they give those younger audiences, they give them the ability to better express themselves. Whether it's augmented reality, right? Like what Snap is doing, filters, you see that at older audiences, or to be completely immersed inside those experiences, right? So if you look at the way that the 3D is impacting the world, is one, it's reducing costs, right? It makes us more efficient because we don't have physical world limitations. Two, it helps us express ourselves in ways that were, unreachable before, and we're hitting some things. I see a lot of really interesting developments in that space, and I can't wait to see how it rolls out.
Are there any trends that we're clearly observing here as to how 3D is changing commerce, or is changing the way that consumers make decisions, or the way that they're perceiving some items? It sounds like a really interesting notion from a consumer behavior perspective, transitioning from traditional two-dimensional e-commerce to a more experiential 3D one.
Right. So basically what we're selling here is a visual enhancement tool, right? Yeah. It helps you get products closer to your customers. If it's through augmented reality, right? So if I'm selling a sofa, I can let them put that sofa using augmented reality inside their rooms. So, or if it's, a model shot, I can render images. So I can show shoppers how a specific garment looks on one's body. And it lowers returns and it increases sales, right? So it makes everything more efficient. It lowers their carbon footprint. So it's also something that is very positive. So these are the trends going into 2023. Virtual try-on. So we just signed a very exciting partnership with TikTok, where we take TikTok's ability, right? So VTO, virtual try-on experiences, or augmented reality experiences, and we give those type of abilities, the ones that you have inside the app, we give those abilities to websites. So a lot of really interesting things are going to happen in 2023. And it's going to happen because of the recession, because of companies' pressure to improve their processes and be more efficient.
What are some of the big milestones that we're approaching, do you think, from in the 3D space or in the intersection of 3D in the world? Where, go ahead.
So headsets are not, so they're selling good, right? So VR headsets are selling in good numbers. They're not what everybody wanted it to be, but their main issue is that the depth of use, right? So how many times I'm using it per day, per week is really low. And when you have that low penetration numbers, then you understand that this is not going to be a mainstream media. So until someone invents a device that I can use on a daily basis all the time, like I use my phone, then these type of enhancements, visual enhancement, are probably going to be used mostly from my phone. So I'm not expecting anything to change anytime soon, unless, the Apples, the rumors, or, I don't know, some manufacturer is going to surprise us with a device that we understand, okay, this is a game changer. But, these are very complicated challenges to solve. These are like very, very complicated physical problems that people need to figure out how to make those devices small enough and comfortable enough for us to use, and then they can start augmenting our environment. Once you invent a device that can augment our environment all the time, then that is going to be interesting, because the amount of opportunities that are going to open up based off those devices are endless.
Where is Hexa today? What is happening these days with Hexa?
So we're keep on growing, right? So I think we grew this year from, 60 to 130. We keep on growing. Our customers are pretty happy with our services, even at these difficult times, which are challenging for everyone that is dealing with mainly retail. Our happiness levels are as high as it can get. We measure them all the time, and we make sure that they're at a certain level. Yeah, I know it sounds funny, right? It sounds like high-techy, but we measure happiness like we measure sales, like the same way. And that's it. I don't know. It's like I go to bed, and it's like the only thing I can think of is when I wake up in the morning and go and solve those extremely complicated problems. So we're still excited even after 7 years into this journey. And it's not gonna stop anytime soon.
And how have you grown as a leader over these 7 years running Hexa?
Oh, wow! I can't even explain how much I've grown as a person. Not as a leader, not as a manager, just as a person, understanding and being responsible for so many lives. It changes you. It's not something that I take for granted. That there's always that imposter syndrome that is over there, and you're always thinking, it's like, am I the right person for this job? Can I keep on growing this company to a few hundreds, maybe a few thousands? Can we serve those type of clients, right? So we work with really, really demanding clients, and it's not slowing down, right? It's only accelerating. So I think I grew as a person a lot. I think as a manager even more, understanding how to stop being hands-on and just like float over everything. When we passed that 20% mark, that was really hard for me. I'm a hands-on person. I like to do stuff, and giving that responsibility to someone else was something that I went through. And it was hard. It wasn't easy. But we build our companies, especially when they grow so fast. We build our company every single year from the ground up. And we as leaders and us as companies, we need to make those changes. And unfortunately, if you can't make that transition into the next phase of the company, you can't stay part of it, which is always very hard in working in a startup. It's not applying or getting into a startup. It's not being successful in the first 6 to 12 months. is how do you keep on learning the new stuff and the new skills that are required for the next level of your role, right? That's challenging. That's the challenge. And that's why I'm so excited. That's why, we haven't sold the company so far, although we have several opportunities, because building it's so interesting. It's like a living organism. And, making those changes and see how the organization reacts to what you're doing is by far the fascinating thing that I have ever done.
Wow. Yehiel, thank you so much for the time and for your insights and the openness sharing the story. This was really wonderful. And can't wait to continue training from the side and seeing what this world evolves to. And it's really, really phenomenal. So thank you very, very much, Yehiel, and best of luck with Hexa.
Thank you so much.